Okay, imagine this. You've been married for 25 years. You've built a life, maybe a family, a whole history together. Then, one day, a court says, legally, none of it ever happened. We're about to get into this really wild case where a marriage that lasted a quarter of a century was just erased, and it all came down to one single missing piece of paper.
I mean, how is that even possible, right? Can a marriage that's lasted that long just be poof, gone, as if it never existed? Well, that exact question was at the very center of a huge legal fight that went all the way up to the Supreme Court of the Philippines. So, let's start at the very beginning of this story.
So this whole thing kicks off not with some big, beautiful wedding, but with something a lot weirder. We're talking about a secret wedding at 3 o'clock in the morning. Seriously, 3 a.m. Court documents say Raquel and Veronica Khan got married at that time specifically to stay out of the public eye. Kind of strange, right?
And get this, the timeline is just wild. On the afternoon of May 31st, a clerk is told, hey, get all the marriage papers ready. And then, boom, less than 12 hours later, they're married. It was that fast, which, immediately makes you wonder, could they really have gotten all the legal stuff done in such a hurry?
So for the next 25 years, everything seems normal. Life just goes on. But then, out of nowhere, Raquel Kowalo, the husband, files a petition that's going to turn everything upside down. He actually asks a court to declare his own marriage null and void, basically to just erase it from the books.
And his whole case, it all hinged on one single claim. He said, I never went to the local civil registrar to apply for a marriage license. That's it. His argument was that this super important legally required document just never existed.
So, I know what you're probably thinking. Okay, after 25 years, who cares about one piece of paper? Does it really matter that much? Well, you're about to see that in the eyes of the law, that one piece of paper can mean absolutely everything.
To really get why this is such a big deal, we got to look at the law. In the Philippines, the civil code lays out what are called essential requisites of marriage. Now, you can think of these as like the four main pillars holding up a house. If you pull one of those pillars out, the whole thing just comes crashing down.
And here are those four pillars. First, you've got the legal capacity of the couple. Then, their consent has to be freely given. You also need an authorized official to perform the ceremony. But that fourth one, that's the real star of our show today, a marriage license. And it's not just a formality, you see? It's basically the government's official stamp of approval on the whole thing.
Okay, so this case was not straightforward at all. It turned into a total legal tug-of-war. You had two different courts looking at the very same evidence, the very same story, and they came to completely opposite decisions. I mean, how does that happen?
So check this out. The first court, the trial court, says, yep, Raquel is right, the marriage is void. Why? Because they had a certificate from the civil registrar saying there was no record of a license ever being issued. Seems simple enough. But then, the case goes to the Court of Appeals, and they completely flip it. They say, nope, the marriage is valid. Their reasoning? They said the law just presumes any marriage is valid, and that presumption is stronger than the certificate. So you've got this total legal deadlock.
So, with the lower courts basically canceling each other out, there was only one way to settle this thing for good. The case had to go to the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court. And really what the Supreme Court had to figure out was this one core question. What's stronger? A legal presumption, basically an official assumption, or cold, hard evidence? It's the ultimate legal showdown, presumption versus proof.
The Supreme Court broke it all down, step by step. First, they said that no record certificate from the civil registrar, that's powerful proof. In fact, it's so powerful that it completely knocks over that legal presumption of validity. So with the presumption gone, the ball was now in Veronica's court. The burden of proof shifted to her. She had to prove that a license did exist, but she couldn't. She couldn't show them the license, a copy, nothing. And so the Supreme Court made its final decision. The marriage is void.
But wait, what about the messy human side of all this? There was this allegation that Raquel wasn't doing this for some pure legal reason, but that he wanted out of the marriage to be with another woman. So, did the court even care about his motives?
Well, the court was pretty blunt about it. This quote from their decision really says it all. They basically said, look, his reasons might not be great, but that doesn't magically create a marriage license where there isn't one. Their point was simple. The law is the law, and it has to be applied. And it all came back to this one specific part of the Civil Code, Article 80, Section 3. It's the part of the law that says, in no uncertain terms, that if you get married without a license, that marriage is void. Not just voidable, but void from the absolute start.
So, that was it. The Supreme Court's final word on the matter was crystal clear. This wasn't some tiny mistake or a little piece of forgotten paperwork. The absence of a license was a fatal flaw. It meant the marriage was never legally valid to begin with.
So, you might be thinking, okay, that's a fascinating story about one family from a while back, but why does it matter to us today? Well, there are actually some really important takeaways from this whole thing.
This case really teaches us a few key things. For one, it shows that a marriage license isn't just a suggestion, it's the state's official seal on the deal. It also shows us just how powerful a no-record certificate can be as evidence in court. And maybe the biggest lesson is that hard proof can and will beat a legal presumption. And finally, it's a really clear example of how the law focuses on the facts, not on why someone is bringing a case to court.
So, in the end, it all comes back to that central question we started with. When a legal assumption clashes with cold, hard proof, what gives? This case gives us a very clear, very stark answer. Proof wins. It's kind of sobering, isn't it? To think that a shared history, a whole life built over 25 years, could be legally undone by one single missing document.